Hi, I'm Deb Hansen. I'm the Education Associate for Visual and Performing Arts at the Delaware Department of Education. The second module we're going to investigate today are finding and using arts education resources in the state of Delaware. Shortly after the standards were adopted in March of 2016, the Delaware Department of Education had an opportunity to put a cover on the National Art Standards website specific to our state. And so we redesigned the cover or skin of our website, and we then added a couple of notable things that I want to share with you. This is the Delaware Standards website, and as you can see the URL, I'm going to put that in, and we're actually going to go into this interactive searchable database to show you some of the resources that are available. And the first thing I want to do is direct your attention to the top up here, where instead of 4 arts disciplines, this new adoption of standards gave us a 5th discipline, media arts. These are live links, and so you can literally go in and click on these live links and go directly to the standards for dance or media arts, music theater, or visual arts. In this next tier, you can dig into some of the background behind the standards. This first block gives you background about the process of creating the standards, and it will literally take you right into some very important resources that were created before the standards were created. Certainly things like research from the College Board, which talks about different iterations of standards across our nation, but also standards-based instruction across the world. So you could see what arts education looks like in Singapore or Finland, for example. The next 4 blocks are the artistic processes. In the 1994 first set of standards that were created nationally, there were 9 standards in music and 6 standards in visual art and 7 in theater and 8 in dance. And they had little to do with one another. This time, the national standards writers, as they began their work in 2011, felt it was really important to provide overarching umbrellas for all the arts disciplines. So those arching umbrellas are called process standards, and they literally are these boxes: creating and performing, presenting, producing, responding, and connecting. Performing is for the performing arts such as music, theater, and dance. Presenting is for the discipline of visual art, and producing is for the discipline of media arts. It's really, they all fall under the idea of sharing work. The next block is responding, and the next block is connecting. Under those artistic processes are 11 anchor standards, 3 in creating, 3 in sharing, 3 in responding, and 2 in connecting. These are high-level anchor standards which enable an art teacher to speak to a music teacher or a theater teacher or a dance teacher. They are not measurable because they're at such a high level. The measurable standards we'll get to in just a minute are the performance standards, which we'll find in the boxes down below. So the first box are the standards at a glance. And if you notice this is a box that flips, that's really exciting because there's a drop-down menu for you to select which discipline you're interested in finding the standards for. Notice that music has subdivided their standards into general music, and then at the secondary level, other areas such as harmonizing instruments, composition and theory, traditional and emerging ensembles for our choral and instrumental programs, and music technology. You can go directly into these disciplines and look at the standards and see them arranged horizontally from pre-kindergarten up through high school. The next block I want to look at are the I can statements. This block is new to this website. It doesn't exist at all on the National Standards website because this block was created by Delaware teachers for educators across the country. And regularly I receive communication from other states that want to use Delaware's I can statements. This concept was borrowed from world languages who have had I can statements for some time. I can statements are the standards that have been interpreted or have been engaging students in their own language at a developmental level. So let's look at these as an example. Here are I can statements for the artistic process create, and you can scroll down and see that these are also arranged in dance, media arts, music, theater, visual arts. So as an example, let's look at these in visual arts from pre-kindergarten through grade 8. Again, you'll see the artistic process of creating. You'll see that first of 11 anchor standards. And this is actually the performance standard. So the standard that can be measured as a learning target. If you are someone who utilizes understanding by design or backward design, here are the essential questions and enduring understandings that might help you in your curriculum development, some big high-level ideas for investigation. Here are the performance standards from pre-K through 8th grade for visual art, and you can see that the first block is the standard statement itself, and below that is the standard statement in I can student-friendly language. The next block I want to bring your attention to is the Model Cornerstone assessments. We talked a lot about these in the first module, if you've completed that one, but Model Cornerstone assessments are the evidence of student learning. Following the writing and adoption of standards, and know that standards are written at the national level and then are adopted state by state. Delaware was the 8th state to adopt this set of standards, and now in the middle of 2019, I believe there are 36 states that have now adopted these standards. The third block is the Model Cornerstone assessments. So again, the standards writers kept working, and they created these assessments that will determine students' understanding of the standards. Again, there's a drop-down menu. You can go in and look at these. So we'll go in and look at a Model Cornerstone assessment for dance. So let's look at grade 8 in dance. If you looked at the first module, this template should look familiar to you, but literally this is a large level assessment exploring who am I in the medium of dance. And you can read through that and see that there are a plethora of resources that you can use, rubrics you can use, instructional strategies that you might want to think about. So really a wealth of information coming from some of the most engaged educators in the country. The fourth block, next to the Model Cornerstone assessments, are examples of student artwork. When the Model Cornerstone assessments were piloted throughout the country, the standards writers had teachers actually implement the Model Cornerstone assessments in their classroom. And so these are examples of student work that you can share with your students. So here are the Model Cornerstone assessment student artwork samples for dance. We looked at dance in 8th grade. And there are MP3 files, there are all kinds of PDFs, and so literally a plethora of resources that you can use in your classroom or use as examples of students participating in these Model Cornerstone assessments. Finally, the fifth box is a wonderful tool for you to use to sort and slice and dice the standards. Standards often are massive tomes of information. So the National Standards website and now Delaware's website give you the ability to identify, I want to look at standards in visual art. I want to look at the artistic processes of creating and presenting at grade 6 and 8. And I want to include the EUs and EQs. And when I click on this, I can create my own handbook that gives me this information that I've identified. So there are the creating standards for visual art at grades 6 and 8. Over on the right, you can print these, or you may email these to a colleague. Teachers are finding these especially useful when they are having conversations with their building administrators and want to give them standard-specific information about what they might be seeing during an observation in their classroom. So this brings us down to the resources you find at the very bottom of the page. You can see that Young Audiences is the server for this website and the National Standards website. They have continued to be a partner along with the professional organizations that you might be familiar with, such as the National Association for Music Education, the National Art Education Association, the National Dance Education Organization, the American Theater and the Educational Theater Organizations, Americans for the Arts, Young Audiences, College Board. So you can see these are the partners that form the Coalition for Core Art Standards that created this wonderful website and all these great resources. If you click on the National Core Art Standards, you will find a matrix and a plethora of information. When I clicked on it, lo and behold, this brings us back to the National Core Art Standards website. So you can see that there are lots of resources. Again, as I said before, we changed this block in Delaware to be the ICANN statements, but you'll see the same information across the bottom of the Art Standards, Delaware Art Standards website, certainly credits. One I want to bring your attention to is the glossary. In the National Art Standards website and its version in Delaware are glossaries for each of the arts disciplines and an assessment glossary you might want to look at. Again, here's a visual arts glossary that has all the terms that are used in the standards document. You'll find them, these words are in red in the standards, and then they're in the glossary and are actually defined within this glossary. In addition to the glossary, you'll find there are resources such as information about, as I said before, the resources about the anchor standards, about the standards matrix, how the standards are coded, how just the basis for how these standards were developed. This document, A Shared Endeavor, is a statement regarding the relationship between public school teachers, arts and community partnerships, and classroom teachers. You might want to look at that. Here are the introductory statements for all the standards, and these are one-page small snippets that are very easily digestible that the standards writers continue to create. At the bottom are opportunity to learn standards, which are the accompanying documents for administrators to be able to self-evaluate programs in schools. They are of special interest, and you might want to look at those as well. Next to the resources are resources for inclusion. These were written by our cultural partners at the Kennedy Center and VSA Arts. These are guiding principles for ensuring that every student has equal opportunity to participate in the arts, and also ideas for differentiating instruction that will help you meet the needs of students that might be struggling, but also students that are our high ability learners. There's an FAQ section. So again, I encourage you to scroll through this, and it will help to answer many of the questions that I hope I covered today, but that you may need for future reference. Thanks for your interest, and I hope you enjoy investigating this standards website.